I was really inspired to investigate this idea of communicating science, not just doing it. I would like to get other people interested in science too.
Obviously, you're not like dictating your choices for life when you're 13, but it's easier to focus on something, when you're like clearly better at that thing. What do you say to girls whose talents are exceptional in more than one area?
And I really wanted to get outside because I, unlike Kevin, really love nature. Like growing up in Hawaii.
Yeah, you're talking somebody who's like the LeBron James of his field. If you have any chance at talking to somebody like that, don't be a weirdo, but shoot your shot. When you went down the creative path, did you ever second guess that? Did you ever think twice or give serious consideration about continuing with YouTube stuff?
Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown, the home of a Make Something, Mean Something. I am Kevin Lieber. It is TCU night, Wednesday night. We are live on Discord with all of our patrons and lurkers, our infantry, baby gang, tots, dumpster crew. We have very exciting things for patrons and normies alike. Isn't that right, Matthew Tabor?
Yeah, we do. Both shirt designs that Kevin has been working on with the artists, they are in production and we'll have them in hand probably by the time this episode comes out, maybe a little longer. You can never tell with shipping now. But those are going to go to our guests. Baby Gang and Infantry get those shirts. And we have discounts for Dumpster Crew and Tots, don't we?
That's right. And if you can't remember these, you have to get into the Patreon. You have to become a $2 tot. I was going to spill the beans on what the great code is, but in order to get those beans and sift through them and find out the codes
straight
I'm
on
so
the
excited
podcast.
About it. I know. I'm so bad. I'm like a child.
Yeah, we've we really spared no expense on the shirts. We wanted an incredibly high quality, very, very soft garment with ink that is water-based so you can't feel it. We're really happy about that. Andre from the Discord, Andre APM, designed the Steven Seagal Chibi hang tag, which is amazing. And both designs are great, the triangle design and camcorder man. Yeah, the price is $25 with free shipping in the U.S. That's included in the price. The Tots will be getting a code for 20% off that. Dumpster Crew will be getting a code for 50% off that. And Baby Gang and Infantry will be getting these shirts for free. Everybody from guests to patrons to the lucky few who get to order in time, because again, this is a limited edition kind of thing. You'll get those shirts in July. So we'll have the links in the description. You can take a look at the designs. We're really excited to get these to you at a pretty good price.
Yeah, and actually I was speaking recently to TCU Hall of Famer Psychic Pebbles, and I gave him a preview of the shirts. Matt, you don't even know this, and he was blown away, genuinely. He said he really, really loved the design. So coming from him, that just meant a lot to me. So don't just take my word for it. But without further ado, I would love to get into our guest who really, I think we've both wanted to have on the show for a very long time. I'm excited we were finally able to make tonight happen.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you talked about a Create Unknown Hall of Famer because lately I've been thinking about humility and simplicity and how they require kind of a certain level of talent or achievement to pull off. Otherwise, it just completely falls flat. It's like Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir said, "Don't be humble, you're not that great." But occasionally, that humility and simplicity is warranted, like great soccer players who go by a single name. the greatest original superhero simply being Superman, or YouTube's PhysicsGirl. But Clark Kent was born with imbued superpowers, Dianna Cowern seems to have earned hers through a physics degree from MIT, research at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, software development at the 33rd largest company in the world, and recognition including a grand prize from the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science for the video What is Color, and being named to Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Diana's most popular content includes how to make a cloud in your mouth, analysis of whether perpetual motion machines are even possible, and a full 21 video series covering the curriculum of Advanced Placement Physics 1. She's a frequent collaborator with most of the legendary science channels you already know. And that fictional Mount Rushmore of educational YouTube that we talked about with Joe Hansen, well, Dianna is etched on that mountainside too. By the time this episode comes out, she'll very likely hit her 2 millionth subscriber, and she's inspired countless young people, and especially girls, to pursue their interests in the sciences. So, Dianna, like us, you didn't have YouTube at that age. What inspired you 20 years ago?
Oh my gosh. First of all, I just have to comment on the fact that no one has ever compared me to an Israeli politician before in my bio. So I think you really nailed me. Thank you for getting Dianna. That's true. Yes, I didn't have YouTube back when I was a child. But I did have, there were video podcasts. So little known fact, I made a video in high school that was like part of my senior project about science. And I wanted to talk about how video podcasts were going to be the future of science communication. And I was so close. Like, video podcasts, I don't think people even know that they exist. And then YouTube was shortly thereafter invented. So I got the platform a little bit wrong, but the idea right. And I made this video that was a science dating show. So that never saw the light of day, thank God. But I was really inspired back then to go into science communication.
Kevin, would you go on a science dating show?
Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, I know you wouldn't right now at this point in your life, but like at the point at which you were dating, would you have gone on a science dating show?
No. I'm way too shy and introverted for that. I want to go back to your high school thing, because if people are longtime listeners of The Create Unknown, they will hear me consistently lament how few opportunities for being creative I had in high school. What is this project that you got to do? What class was that for? I didn't have a single class where any project was remotely creative.
Well, you're giving a lot of credit to my school, because I think that what I ended up doing, like this video podcast, was not really what they intended. And I think I barely squeaked by with credit, even though it was like the prologue to my career. But yeah, I went to this tiny private school. There were 20 kids in my graduating class. The parking lot was a grass field. So it was very, very small. And it was also a very new school. So they were experimenting with a lot of different ways of getting kids involved. They called themselves a college prep school, but I was definitely not prepared for anything like college when I got to MIT. So yeah, what they had been experimenting with at the time was this idea that high schoolers would make a project that would like be a culmination of the knowledge in some field. And I was really interested in science media at the time. I'd seen this DVD series that also tells you the era, this DVD series that we had ordered by mail of Neil deGrasse Tyson before Cosmos, before a lot of the more popular media stuff he did. But he did this really cool astrophysics series on DVD. So I'd watched that. And then I had listened to this podcast by a scientist called Kiki Sanford. that was called This Week in Science. And I think it's still around. She started this, I don't know, when podcasts were invented, so 2005 or 6, but she's still doing it. And I listened to that and I was really inspired by them to investigate this idea of communicating science, not just doing it, but being like, I would like to get other people interested in science too. I don't know if this was the case for you guys, but it was really cool to say that you hated science when I was in high school. So all of my peers were like, ugh, science, ugh, math, hate it. And it was really cool to be into history or into like government and politics. So I was one of the nerds, and I wanted to get other people interested in the. Are you laughing about the fact that like the non-nerds were like, I love history and politics?
Yeah. Yes, that is why I am laughing. Yes, because I wasn't expecting you to go there. When I went to high school, everything the cool thing to do was just to hate it all.
True.
It was nobody liked any of it in my high school. The whole thing was garbage. No. I can't imagine being like, cool history weird. Is what is cool.
What happens at a small school is unpredictable. So yeah, that's what inspired me. I had seen this podcast, this DVD series, and then that inspired me to want to make a senior project. And I made Beauty Picks the Nerd, and it starred a bunch of 16 to 17-year-old kids, and it was cringe AF.
I do want to point out, by the way, that you saw these DVDs through the mail as if that's like the technologically lowest point. I remember a laser disc being pulled out in chemistry. So, and that was the cart gets rolled in the room. Everybody had those media carts with like 10 things on them. But ours had a laser disc player, and I can't remember what it was. But if anybody hasn't seen a laser disc, just Google the thing. It's like a giant CD that's like, it's like 13 inches wide. It's amazing. But you could pack a lot of video on one of those.
Even that, we're not that old. I mean, the Laserdisc thing, wasn't that just a goof? Was that a real thing? Like, really, here comes the Laserdisc lesson?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Mr. Good had the Laserdisc. He was chemistry and physics, and he pulled out the Laser-disc here and there. But yeah, there was also a teacher before that with a slideshow. You didn't have any slideshows where it had the audio cassette tape that beeped and somebody had to flick the projector when the audio beep hit the cassette? Did you do those?
I don't think so, but I do remember like listening to these kids. It was like these weird kids tapes that told stories for kids. There's like a guy Dave Schmave, who was like the elevator man. They had these weird kid songs, and then my mom would like press the button and the cassette would pop out, flip it over to the other side. It had this little jingle to be like, switch to side B. I remember that.
And now you can just
old Mazda
load up. Yeah, now you can just load up a 21 video series that's like in 4K and free and instant.
Yeah, all on your phone while you're in the mountains in Taiwan. Like, it's just, I mean, God, I feel like such a grandma. I don't even have kids, and I'm a grandma already being like, in my day with the cassettes and the sides.
What I really, this podcast is going off the rails right away, but I don't care. I want to know more about this strange, like 20-person private school. Did the other 19 graduates all go on to like various amazing accomplishments, or what? Do you keep track of the rest of them?
I have not followed that many of my high school classmates. I was going to say friends, but most of us have not stayed in touch. I grew up in Hawaii, so I grew up in a very, very small island, and it wasn't just a small island. I don't think I knew anyone from my town. No one at my school lived in my town, or I guess no one in the high school, because my school is actually 300 kids from preschool to 12. It was one of those where you could go to the same school from preschool to 12th grade. It was called Island School. the most generic name you could come up with for a school in Hawaii. It was called Island School. And what else is there to say about it? I know one of my classmates went on to study, I think, politics or international relations at Stanford. I don't know what she's doing now. Another did, he's a geologist. He was actually in one of my videos talking about how Hawaii was formed, which is a really interesting story about mysterious magnetic stripes on the ocean floor. That's a cool story for another time. And then one of them is, I think he lives in Alaska doing security research for computer networks. So that's about as much as I know.
Okay, because in my smooth idiot brain, I automatically am thinking like this is a TV show. It's like My Hero Academia, where it's like 20 students were selected to go to Island High School, and they all came out like with different superpowers. Here's one of the superheroes, PhysicsGirl.
It would have. I feel like the B-roll for that would have been really disappointing. It would have been 20 select kids, and it would have cut to someone like chewing on a fruit roll-up, but this still has the plastic on it. And there's like, because we were just a normal high school. Like really, honestly, we had the smart, nerdy kids. We had a couple medium and a couple less ambitious kids. You know, it was a whole mix.
So when you have that kind of smallish scenario, you can do pretty much whatever you want because there aren't tons of other people doing it to lock you out. Like you can pursue kind of any path, right? So why did you go in the sciences direction when you easily could have focused on literally anything else?
I think that I probably have to, I thank or I blame my physics teachers. I had one really, really awesome teacher who had gone to MIT, and then just out of sheer luck, he really loved surfing and saw Kauai as one of the best places for surf in the world. So moved there and decided to teach at this tiny private school. So he taught some small classes with like 4 or 5 of us in quantum mechanics and relativity, and really got us into the sciences that are way cooler than the normal curriculum. And then I had this, for my first and main physics class, I had this teacher, Kathy Jones, who I think she instilled in me the idea that seeing other women do science is really, really impactful for young women. Having a role model, having not just these photos. Oh my God. I know that we've all had this experience, but I was just at this really, really amazing observatory in Los Angeles where they have the original plates for some of the stuff that Hubble discovered. And they've got like pictures on the wall of when Einstein visited, but every single photo is like old white guy, old white guy, old white guy, old white guy, like all in their suits. And that's what most of us saw when we were growing up, when we saw scientists and textbooks and like, here's the person that discovered this thing. And if I had seen only that and I hadn't had this teacher, Kathy Jones, I don't think that I would have thought, oh yeah, I can do science. I could do physics. I think I would have been like, oh yeah, no, that's for men. Like it's more of like an older white man career. Like I mean, those gender stereotypes are so real. And I have them for other careers. Like, I think I'm pretty biased in looking at certain careers, like probably construction or I don't know, the garbage man. I don't think I've ever seen a garbage woman. So we all have those biases. And I'm really lucky that someone broke that for me in science.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you a question about girls choosing to go into science. So one of the quirks of one of the quirks that has emerged in education research in the last like 15 or 20 years shows that girls are better at science and math than boys earlier. They just simply get to a cognitively a better place sooner. But there's a problem, which is actually not a problem, in that the same thing exists on English, writing, language arts, and languages. They're better at that too. So what do you do when when, girls are really good at two things. I mean, obviously, you're not like dictating your choices for life when you're 13. But it's easier to focus on something, when you're like clearly better at that thing. What do you say to girls whose talents are exceptional in more than one area?
That is a very specific question I've never been asked before.
Yeah.
Like there's a kid, I don't know, your niece or something, and they're really, really good at music, but they're such a good musician, but they're also super good at math or something. I think that that's not to toot my own horn, but I loved music. I was in the choirs and I was playing piano all through high school. I was super into tennis, and not that I was amazing at all of these things, but I think that I really applied myself at a lot of different areas, and I was encouraged not only to go into science and pursue that, but to try out music, to take lessons, to try out all these different things. And I think that that's probably why I ended up doing what I'm doing. Which is, I'd be really interested to hear what Kevin has to say about this kind of thing, because he sort of did the same thing where I loved photography back when I was a kid. My mom bought me this little flip cam. Have you guys heard of that? A flip cam?
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah. Yeah, they were awesome. They were simple and really good.
So simple, like a little plastic camera that looked like, I don't know, it looked like a cigarette pack, but it flipped out on the side with this little USB port that could plug directly into your computer, which was so novel at the time. And I made little iMovies because I just liked the arts, and I was in musicals when I was a kid. Like, I loved this combination between science and the arts. And I think because I had those diverse interests, I ended up doing something that is kind of both. Like, most of my job these days is researching and then distilling down and writing. Like, I'm just pouring through articles, and don't tell anybody, but Wikipedia pages also, and figuring it all out while researching, and then writing that up, which involves so many different skills, more from the arts and from, language arts. And then also the science knowledge, also the science fields. So I would say if there's a girl who's into a lot of those things, there are jobs that combine all of them or some of them, and they're some of the more unique jobs. And nowadays, I think there are a lot more of those types of jobs that will combine something like gaming and math. I have a friend who just got a job doing music for gaming, and he needs a computer science background. So he's a composer, and he's got a computer science background. He used to work on video game software, and now does both, like the music for the games. And you don't get a job like that unless you have a background in a lot of these different things. So I think there's a lot of unique opportunities. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. And it's a really good answer. And I never really thought about it like that. Like, I never really contextualized it in such a way. I will say that what attracted me to making videos is a very similar thing. It just seemed to be able to combine a lot of different arts into one thing. Mm-hmm. And because I did try many different arts, making music, writing comedy essays, writing writing and drawing comic strips. I did for a while. I did theater stuff like improv comedy on stage. I did all of that stuff, and it seemed like film. So I didn't start out doing film until like later in my college career. I actually switched majors to that because I realized, hey, I don't know why I never thought about it before, but it's like, hey, this combines a lot of things that I like to do into one thing. And you do kind of get to have your cake and eat it too by making videos. It's a weird thing, right?
Yeah, I was initially really shocked to find that a lot of the science YouTubers like Henry from Miniphysics and Derek from Veritasium and Grant from 3 Blue 1 Brown, they all have music backgrounds. They all play music. The ASAP Science guys have made music videos. Like, I was really surprised to find that out and be like, whoa, we all did music. Like, we all kind of have this arts background. But then the more I thought about it, the more it made sense, because we all probably would have just stayed in science. We would have gone on and done research if we hadn't also had this interest in the arts and wanted to combine the two interests.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget, Kevin, didn't Jake go into detail when we talked to him on the podcast about him being 17 and in a band that was playing quite real shows? The Hools, I think the name was on it. But yeah, I mean,
they opened for Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah. So we're not talking like a garage band that played like one bar mitzvah one year. No, this is like a real solid musical endeavor. And that is a common theme with so many people. They have this weirdly present, significant arts background and then do something completely different that's not different at all.
Totally. I sang in an a cappella group in college. How much more stereotypical could I be? But I sang in an a cappella group called the Corollaries, which is a real fun math pun there for you. And my sophomore year, we were competing. It was 100% like Pitch Perfect, with the a cappella competitions, competing regionally. And I won in the quarterfinals. I won Best Soloist for that year for singing Rainbow Connection by Kermit the Frog. And I did not sing it in the voice of Kermit the Frog, but we then went to the semifinals, and we very much lost to Sam Shui, who then went on and became a YouTuber as well. And we've now met at various events, and we had met at that competition where, I came in all like thinking I'm hot stuff after winning Best Soloist Award, and then they just crushed us once we got to the semifinals. But yeah, lots of music background, ended up overlapping with other YouTubers, which I think, that goes to show that passion for the arts. This is where we all end up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, first of all, it's good to lose sometimes. Actually,
yeah,
you need to. You need some humbling to get off your high Kermit horse every now and then. Take it down a notch. But it reminds me a lot, Matt, of the Penny Problem video that we did recently on Vsauce 2, talking about the System 1, System 2, like dual model processes of the brain, where it's like you need to pack as much into your System 1 because you just don't know how you're going to utilize it later, when you need it in your System 2. Is that not exactly what Diana's kind of like outlining with this like music background thing, when that morphs into science, and then all of a sudden you're talking about the biggest science communicators in the world?
Yeah. I mean, math and science are so similar to music in terms of kind of the intellectual processes that make up the foundation of it. But what's really interesting about the System 1 and System 2 thing, and really quick, if you haven't seen this video, the theme of the video is that System 1 is all the knowledge that is automatic in your brain. All the things that are just there that you process instantly, don't even think about. System 2 is your brain using that information to sit down and think. So when you're driving a car, you're not actually thinking about the 97 things happening around you. They're processed automatically. Your System 1 is handling that. It's equipped to handle that. System 2 is like, what am I gonna write in the, Father's Day card to Dad? It might take you 20 minutes to write a sentence, and that's seemingly a much lesser intellectual pursuit than like driving a massive machine hurtling at 60 miles an hour. But yeah, you don't know when System 2 is going to need stuff from System 1. And with all of you, you filled up, well, not filled up, it's never full, but you loaded up System 1 with all of this stuff for something that hadn't even been invented yet. YouTube wasn't around. You couldn't have possibly known how that would be activated in System 2. And that's why it's so important to just plain know stuff, to get good at things, to pursue things seriously. You have no idea how it's going to come up or when it's going to come up. In the example that I like the most from this, it's not significant, but I like it. I went to an industrial designing exhibit in like 2002 of Brooks Stevens. This was in Milwaukee. Brooks Stevens designed for Harley Davidson. He designed train cars in the 60s. He was probably the most influential industrial designer of that era. He also kind of started planned obsolescence, which everybody knows is now a thing with iPhones. But anyway, it was a good exhibit. I didn't think much of it. Literally 16 years later, a tiny little consulting job came up for a guy who did stuff with trains. And I was able to take that thing out of my System 1 from 16 years ago, put it in the proposal, and, that afternoon I'm on the phone with the guy and we're getting to work. I had no idea that going to that, exhibit would pay off for me later in life, but nearly 2 decades later, I made good money on it. I had no clue how that would be used in the future, and some things aren't used in the future. That's okay. But enough of them are that yeah, it's how people like Kevin and Dianna make these careers when they couldn't have possibly seen them coming.
Yeah. I'm gonna hard pivot to Mud Puddles right now because I think it's time. I think it's time to hard pivot to Mud Puddles. It seems like a good segue, a good abrupt segue. The Mud Puddle video was amazing. So you've been killing it lately. You've gone. I should preface this by saying you're free PhysicsGirl. You're no longer affiliated with PBS. You're on your own. Go to Patreon and join Dianna's Patreon because she's doing great stuff on her own now, including this Mud Puddle video that blew my mind the entire way through because I never heard about any of this. And I am so freaked out by nature, like generally speaking, because when it comes to things like this mud puddle, you kind of just have to throw your hands up. You're like, what are you going to do? And if nobody knows what I'm talking about, I would love for you to give us a brief synopsis all about this mud puddle and what's going on out there in California.
Oh my gosh. I love this super abrupt segue. For those of you like Kevin who are terrified of a mud puddle potentially attacking, coming, running after your hide your kids, hide your wife. Don't worry. It moves about 20 feet a year. It is far outside of most civilization. It's really close to Calipatria is the area of California. And it's right by the Salton Sea. So I think that's maybe what most people may be familiar with to sort of get the general area. The Salton Sea is like this accidental sort of lake that was formed in the California desert that used to be where Hollywood stars would go. People would go like take their, like imagine the 60s, 70s, like really frilly bathing suits. And they're sitting on the cars, really old cars by the shore there. That's where we're talking about. But now, like the number one thing to go see is I can't even remember the name of it, like Cement Garden or something. I don't know. Like really not a lot going on out there in this area, but there is a moving mud puddle. So I was looking around for things we could go see in the area since COVID was happening. We were all locked down. And I realized that what I wanted to take my channel on to go do, I really wanted to pivot a little bit. I wanted to change from experiments in the studio, filming here, just like talking to the camera with something I had scripted or something we had researched. And I really wanted to get outside because I, unlike Kevin, really love nature. Like growing up in Hawaii, I think it's inevitable. I love the ocean. I would love to do a scuba diving video. Just haven't thought of the right one. I love surfing. Like I want to get out there. And I think some of my favorite videos so far have been about geology. So this was a perfect topic when it came up. I saw this article that was talking about how there's a moving mud puddle out in the California desert about 2.5 hours east of San Diego, and it is threatening the local town. It was declared a natural disaster in, I think, 2015 is when they declared a natural disaster, and has caused over $18 million of damage. Like just this thing is barreling through and digging up the ground, and it moved. It wasn't really a problem until it moved toward a major highway in that area that carries agriculture and kids to schools. And then a train track that runs right along the highway, and a high-speed fiber optic cable and a natural gas pipeline, all in this one little area. And then this mud puddle comes along and starts digging up the ground. And when we're talking about Puddle, I mean, if you haven't seen it, like, this thing is actually huge. It's about 20 feet across now. And at various times, the basin where it's like bubbling muddy water has been at some points like 100, 150 feet across. So it's really big. What it is likely similar to a mud pot, which I never heard of. We don't have these in Hawaii. But if you live near a plate line, like the boundaries between the tectonic plates, a fault line, that's what they call them. If you live near one of those, there's these areas where gas just comes up from the center of the earth, starts bubbling up through the ground, and it'll bubble up through areas where it's really sedimentary, like this area in Calipatria, this basin where it's just really, really soft sand. And it'll bubble up and drag water with the sand and with the mud and create a bubbling mud pot. And often they'll just turn into sort of it's kind of cool to see the pictures of them. They look like either like little mini volcanoes made of mud, or sometimes they look a little bigger, like sort of like a geyser. But this one has started moving, and that has never happened before. And that was what I was so intrigued by, because the articles I read were all like, scientists are baffled. No one knows why this thing's moving. No one's ever seen that happen before. So I wanted to go out and see it. We traveled out there, took a look at it, got the tour. It was really cool.
How do you stop it? How do you stop this mud puddle that is coming for you? What intervention can you have? Can you reroute it? Can you steer it around important things, or what?
In my self-designated expert opinion, I really don't think there's anything you can do to stop it. What they tried doing, and by they, I mean the railroad and the highway have attempted multiple things and have hired various people. But the railroad tried putting, I guess like the first thing that would come to mind would be to block it. So they tried putting in this like 75-foot deep sheet pile wall. That's kind of that stuff that looks like, I don't know, like kind of corrugated metal. So it's this pile, this like metal sheet that they put in the ground, and it was 150 feet across. And for a little while that was working. Nothing came up on the other side, but then it started bubbling a little bit on the other side. And then they heard some hissing, like more gas coming up from the other side. And then all of a sudden, one day, just without warning, the ground just sunk in and the entire puddle jumped 60 feet. So it had been blocked for a bit until it had gone underneath and dug and dug and dug until this thing bubbled up. And then just like a big sinkhole appeared on the other side of the sheet pile wall. And when this happened, there was a train that had just parked there. There's a guy in the video that we have. Like, fortunately, they documented all of this because there's someone in the video going, like, get the train out of there, get the train out of there. Because this thing had just completely sunk in the ground. You have no idea how far it's actually dug underneath. So it's very possible that it could have like dropped the train into the sinkhole as well. Fortunately, that didn't happen. No one got hurt. They got the train out. And then they realized, like, okay, from there, the only thing we can do is just build detours until it passes through. Like, let it do its thing. Maybe drain some of the water. And that's what they did. The train built a detour around. The highway built a detour around. And then they're draining a little bit of the water, so it's relieving pressure up against the highway, so they can preserve the current highway. Then it'll pass underneath, and then they'll let it destroy the detour and put the cars back on the original highway. Pretty crazy stuff. This thing is so bizarre.
I have several questions.
Okay. I'm so happy you do, because I just feel like I have to, I just want the acknowledgement that this thing is cool. Like, it's weird and awesome that our planet does this. Like, we're not on Mars. We're not on Venus. Like, this is happening here. There's just a moving mud puddle that's so big, it's threatening critical infrastructure. That's pretty cool, right? It's not just me.
It's very cool. It's very scary. It's very fun to think about. The first thing that came to mind is that this is like a parody of one of those old monster movies, like Attack of the 50-foot mud puddle. That's the first thing that I thought of. The second
like
thing,
this thing is just moving a couple inches a day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like in that Austin Powers scene where they keep cutting back and forth with the steamroller, and it's really far away.
So slowly.
Yeah, he's just really slowly about to crush him. But the first thing I thought of when they dug that like 5-story wall, or they buried that 5-story wall, was like, first of all, that's a really deep hole by human standards. Like 5 stories, 75 feet, whatever. Holy cow, that's a big hole. By the Earth standards, the Earth is hysterically laughing at this. Like, the Earth is just having like a big gurgly mud puddle Earth chuckle at our stupid wall that's 75 feet down. Meanwhile, it's like, you're talking about the Earth. The Earth. It's going to care about that? No.
I think that to me just reflects how little we knew about this. The fact that they were like, okay, well, we're just going to try stuff. Like, it in retrospect is hilarious. It's comical how it did. Like, it didn't even work a little bit. Like, it didn't, not even a little bit did it work. But like, I think that from as a scientist, I'm like, oh, but that's so cool, because now you learn, like, at least this thing is coming from that deep. Just cool stuff.
Matt, what were you going to say about the moving mud puddle and the wall?
Oh, you talking about how insignificant it is. There was this old test that was like, what's the most similar small item to the Earth's surface, and you had a few choices, and a lot of people would choose an orange because, an orange is pretty spherical, and it's got some tiny little bumps on it, and like, if you shrink down the Earth with all the mountains and everything, it's going to be a lot like that. No, that was the wrong answer. The right one was a billiard ball, which is just perfectly smooth and round, because when you do take the entire Earth and shrink it down to something that fits in the palm of your hand, it's like a perfect, glass sphere. You can't even notice something like Mount Everest. So imagine, like a 75-foot trench, a hole that somebody's dug. Like, it's just not showing up.
No, it does. It does. The Earth do not care about you, about your wall. It's going below that. It's going to blow up the Earth on the other side, and it's going to keep going. There's 2 other thoughts I had about moving mud puddle. One is, I should say that my wife and I recently finished rewatching all of The Sopranos, and man, it would be great to dispose of some bodies in that mud puddle. You're never finding them. What a great way to like whack somebody in the mafia and then chuck them in the mud puddle.
That is an excellent idea. I think, unfortunately, I'm going to be a Neil deGrasse Tyson here, where he, ruins movies and everything with science, but the human body is more dense than water and more dense than like the rock material that the mud is made out of. So you would float, unfortunately. You'd probably float up to your chest. So you'd be like not able to get out. And then you would suffocate because it's bubbling up carbon dioxide that just stays and pools on the top of the mud puddle. So you would not only have difficulty getting out, you would suffocate, but unfortunate for you, and then also unfortunate for your murderer because you'd be visible. So
it wouldn't get pulled down eventually.
No, it wouldn't, because you would just float on the top of that, unless you tied something like a weight to the bottom. Yeah, this is the idea. This is the way to go. You tie some weights to their feet, sinks into the bottom, and then over time you get buried. So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what they do anyway. I don't know if you've watched Sopranos, but some cinder blocks, some chains, chuck them in the mud puddle, never finding them again. The other thing I want to know, because I don't know if it was addressed in the video, is where does the mud puddle end up eventually? Like, where is it going to? What's the end game for moving Mud Puddle? What's the finish line?
Probably, yeah, finish line, from what they told us, it's eventually going to just end up at the Salton Sea. So it's heading that direction. And then if it makes it that far, it'll just blend with the Salton Sea, and then you wouldn't even notice it. It would be just be some gas bubbling up at the bottom of the Salton Sea. You wouldn't see it as a separate thing. So yeah, that's where it goes.
Of all the places to spend an entire lifetime slowly crawling to, why would you go to the one that probably smells the worst out of anything in like the lower 48 states?
Because you're a mud puddle.
The travel plans of moving mud puddles, we will never comprehend. I couldn't say.
It's mildly poetic, though, don't you think? This slow crawl towards the sea. I mean, there's a metaphor there somewhere.
Metaphor for, yeah, sure, absolutely. Metaphor for life. We are all a slow crawling mud puddle, eventually ending up at the the rotten fish smell of the Salton Sea, and that is our final resting. Yeah, something like that.
No, that's exactly what I wanted. That's the soundbite for this podcast right there.
Put it on the front of your journal.
Write that, Matt, in your Father's Day card. And you're done.
That's what everybody message should do for Mother's Day and Father's Day, is just simply just like write a fact about mud puddles in every card every single year. Do it for every holiday and just see how long you can go before your family starts to complain. Like, can you make it to 2027 and like your 51st mud puddle fact before they're like, hey, you don't have to keep doing that, you know?
I don't know, but I do smell some mud puddle merch in your future. Like, somebody's got to cash in on this. Like, I went to the mud puddle and all I got was this lousy t-shirt.
we honestly gave it a thought. Like, we were like, just barely change the poop emoji a little bit, put that on an enamel pin, and we're good to go. Like, maybe make it slightly more puddle shaped. Yeah.
Seriously.
We thought about it. Perhaps.
Well, I really like how you did that video. You know what it reminded me of was another TCU Hall of Famer, one of our first guests, Derek Muller's Shade Balls video. The atmosphere of it was very similar, because it was like, here's this weird kind of environmental thing. I'm going to go figure out what's going on behind it. So how hard was it to make a video like that? Because I've never really made that style of video. I mean, you had like drone shots going on, and you have to contact these people, right? And get permission to go there. I mean, how much work was involved in putting something like that together?
Yeah, this video was one of our harder ones. This actually took us quite a while. I think we got in touch with Caltrans. I've never in my life ever thought that I would contact or get in touch with like one of the transportation administrations of any state or country, but we got in contact with them, and they were so excited and so receptive. And what I didn't get to show off in the video was that the lead engineer who is in charge of the highway, the guy who gave us, basically he was the tour guide, but he was the one telling us what the highway's doing in order to preserve the highway, what pipes they're putting in to drain some of the water and so forth. But he was so fascinated by this whole thing. He'd never seen anything like it before. He was just really excited to show off like not only what they've done and the solutions they've come up with, but also to be like, this is what we've learned. Like, we never get to see anything like this. And this really sparked our curiosity. And it turned out he has two daughters, twin daughters who are 6 years old. And he was just like, I hope they get into engineering. I hope they see this video on YouTube. They see their dad on YouTube. So this was one of the more rewarding videos to make, in addition to being, challenging to pull all the pieces together and get in touch with all the right people and get all the right permissions. But it was It was intense. Yeah, you guessed correctly. I feel so seen, Kevin, when you're like, this looks like it was a lot of work. I'm like, yes, so much work. The other thing that was hard about this is that it was a little bit different style than we've ever really done. I felt like I was experimenting a little bit with just like trying to tell a story of this rather than, I'm so used to just like someone asks, how does relativity work? And I'm like, oh my gosh, let me tell you. And I start out with the knowledge that they have and then just go through the explanation of how something works. But it doesn't usually involve a story. And I liked that idea. I like the idea of creating a story here. And we were really, really lucky that everything was very well documented in what the railroad station did, what the highway did. Everything had to be publicly shared. And then the final, we added this last minute, but the final, like, I think most important interview we got was with a geologist. Carolina Zamora was the geologist that we talked to, and she was there so she could describe some of the things that she went through. She was like, we were digging and then we hit this pocket of pressure and drilling mud shot into the air. And she was describing what happened. And usually you don't have that opportunity for something like this. So we were so lucky we had her. And she was hilarious. It was her first ever interview for YouTube. So she was super nervous. She's like, I don't know how it's going to go telling the story of this, or I don't want to get anything wrong. But she ended up being just the best, one of the best guests we've ever had to interview, just her excitement. So I think we got really lucky with this one is what it is. We contacted a lot of different people, filmed a lot of different ways. And then of course I have 2 full-time employees and I dragged them out through the mud and hiking along, and they brought the drone. It was great. It was a great time. It's everything I hoped for. As someone who loves nature, I was like, I want to get out there. I want to get dirty, and I want to film a mud puddle.
Yeah, the geologist enthusiasm just poured off the screen. You did get lucky with her because I'm sure that you have experience interviewing other academics, and sometimes they're not nearly as charismatic on camera.
Bad, yeah.
I mean, for those who haven't seen the video yet, first of all, definitely watch it. Second of all, there's a moment where the geologist is talking about how bummed she was that she missed the part where this side, on the other side of the wall, the ground collapsed. She was there, and then like in the hour or so she was gone, or like an hour later after she left, the ground collapsed, and she was like truly just beside herself that she missed that event. And it was so funny.
I loved it. I think that's such a relatable moment. But I also, I have my goals with these videos, and they're very selfish, but I really, I want young kids to see this, and I want some girls to see this and see this woman, Carolina, who's like, I was so bummed I didn't get to see when it collapsed, and like we learned something from that. I want these little girls, these little boys to see someone like that and see like, oh, this is a very successful person, and she gets excited about stuff like that. Like, it's okay for me to be excited and nerdy too. So there's a wholesome nugget for you.
That kind of thing is absolutely right. Like how infectious it is to see somebody into something, whether they're celebrating or affected by it or whatever. And that's really how you develop an interest in watching any sports, because like there's nothing programmed into your brain to make you want to care about like localized tribes of people throwing a round thing sort of at another one, but that guy has a stick that he's going to try to stop it with. Like, no. This is inherently like not part of the human experience, but you grow up seeing people care about it. Maybe it's, friend, family, whatever, stuff on TV. It's exciting. It's fun. You get into it. And so there's absolutely something when it comes to math or science, where, you see somebody on YouTube or a teacher or just anything, and if they're taking it seriously, they're enjoying it, it's important to them, well, that goes a long way.
I think that's a really, really good point. Like you think about, soccer games or football games you saw when you were a kid, and it's just inherently exciting and energized. And like, at the end it's like, like touchdown. They're like jumping up and chest bumping and slapping each other's butts. And Like, it's so exciting. And then like pan over to a computer scientist in a lab and like you debug your code.
Right.
Like you fix it. Like there's no active cheering. There's nobody slapping you in the chair. Like I feel like that's what a lot of kids don't see is like it's a much more subdued level of excitement when you learn something. And I think that's one of the things that I see in my peers' videos and that I try to show in my videos is like this excitement that can be infectious for science, but it's just science really doesn't inherently have that. You have to sort of create it, which it feels artificial, but I think for me it's real.
I think it's valid too to say that it's as humble as people want to be when they have a really big presence and a lot of people following their work. It really is important to show people that, like, you know, I could have done anything. I could have pursued music. I was pretty good at writing, whatever like your litany of talents are. But I chose physics. That's an important thing to point out. Like, not just, you know, you didn't like kind of randomly choose it out of a list of options. It's like, no, this was important. Like, out of everything else I possibly could have done, and I'm able to do those things, this is what I grabbed. And that does substitute to some degree for not having those like literally waving a flag and like jumping up and down moments that soccer has. Yeah, it's a deeper, slower moment, but it's a really important thing to communicate.
Was that an invitation for me to share all the things?
Yeah. Yes. First of all, you should start off every video listing your talents.
Yeah. I was gonna be like, I was so good at tennis. I was second singles in a team of like 4 tennis players, and only senior year when I had seniority. I was so talented. Why I didn't go into professional tennis, we'll never know. Physics, it just pulled me, you know.
Right. What I'm hearing overall though is science cheerleaders. Just the concept of science cheerleaders. We need to start this. I don't know, you know, who's going to fund it. Maybe we could ask for a grant or something. But
yeah,
I don't know where they'll
be.
Give
me an S.
Maybe they
give me a T. Give me E. M.
I also really quickly wanted to go back a second to talk about the enthusiasm of like the transportation guys, in like excitement over somebody being interested in what he does, because this is something that I have also run into, and there is like a lesson here, and there's like an actionable thing for listeners to use from this information that I'm trying to impart, and that's reach out to people who do stuff like that. Reach out to experts, because do you want to know why? Nobody does. Nobody does. Nobody talks to these people who are geniuses in their field. They might be like the most amazing person in the world at whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's like mud puddles or studying dolphins or whatever. Like field surveying. I have no idea. It could be anything, and nobody cares. And just you showing an interest in their life's work is really meaningful to them. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, they'll be excited to share what it is that they know and what it is that they do with you, and you know, by proxy with your audience.
I would also say to seek out the people who are excited about the thing they do, even if they're not the most accomplished in it, the most talented, whatever. Just because somebody is like, you know, the number one in a thing, man, the people who are excited to be number 219th are the ones that you want to hang out with. Because they tend to talk more. They tend to complain about the bad stuff more. They tend to just communicate everything because it's their life and they want to talk about the ups and the downs of it. That's cool. So find who's exciting or who's excited about their work. Hit them up. Like Kevin said, nobody ever does. And if you have a sincere interest, they're going to go bananas over it because it is their life's work, and your queries, your interest in it kind of validates that.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And even some of the big people like the Invention of Friends video that I did a long time ago. I sent that script to Robin Dunbar, who is like a titan.
He's Robin Dunbar.
He's freaking Robin Dunbar. This dude is a titan in his field. And he literally read my YouTube script and gave me notes on it. I just emailed him cold. Like, you know how crazy it is?
Yep.
You know how many cold emails that I get that I just delete?
Yeah. Yeah. Like there was no incentive for him to do it. He did it because he cares about that field of study, and he cares about how you were communicating and making sure you got things right and didn't mislead, and just all the stuff that is important to, researchers and theorists. Yeah. I mean, you're talking somebody who's like the LeBron James of his field. And having easy access to that, like, take it. If you have any chance at talking to somebody like that, shoot your shot. Don't be a weirdo, but shoot your shot.
Yeah, don't be a weirdo.
Yeah, that's probably the best part of the advice is don't be a weirdo.
Yeah, but are you looking to do more videos kind of like in that style in the future? Was this one too overwhelming that you don't want to go back out there so quickly, or what are your thoughts about the future of that style on your channel?
Oh, I think 100% we're looking to do more videos like this. This is actually, I'm so thankful that video did well, and this is bearing the inner soul of a YouTube creator, which is that we all worry about the views, especially because that typically translates into
open up Studio and see 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
The 10 out of 10 screen is the worst possible thing you can ever see.
Oh, it's the worst. But you know what? I hacked the system because you mentioned in my bio that I did that series, the Physics 101, like AP Physics series.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all knew it was not going to be the most popular thing I ever did, but it reset my statistics. So then every video I've come back with since then has been 1 out of 10. You really I make a regular video and it just blows all of those views out of the water. So that's, you kill your channel and then come back strong with the way to go.
It's called raising the bar by lowering the floor. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what we did. It felt great, honestly. Knew what was going on, but it felt great. So yeah, we already have a video in the works. We already went to film at this observatory. It's called Mount Wilson Observatory up in the hills right near Los Angeles, just, an hour outside of Hollywood. There's this incredible historic observatory where they've got 100-inch telescope. And it was the telescope where Hubble discovered the universe, is what they say. And they're technically not wrong. Where Hubble discovered that there are things outside of our galaxy. So no one knew that there was anything beyond the Milky Way until these discoveries at the 100-inch observatory. So we went there and they let us drive and operate the telescope, get in the telescope because it's still just this big scaffolding you can climb into, and filmed some bits about the history of this discovery. So that's, I wanted to make videos where we go out there and see things, but I still wanted to do it in a way that tells a story. How did it happen? What were the scientists like? We found out a little bit about Hubble's personality, the fact that he was a pretty stoic guy, but also had one moment of uncharacteristic excitement where he wrote an exclamation point on a little glass plate he was making his observations on.
Pretty wild.
Really, I mean, what a wild night. Yeah, so that's the next video we have coming up. We're also working on a series about renewable energy right now that I can't talk too much about, but that's hopefully coming out pretty soon. So really want to talk to the scientists and engineers doing things, get out there, see things, experience things. Again, I would love to do a video about scuba diving because I love the ocean. But I think the goal next is figuring out a way to tell these stories through scientists that are doing the science, or engineers that are making this new technology, what it's like for them, and then me sharing what I've learned along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's a great direction for the channel. I think it's a great direction for you. I think it's kind of sorely needed on YouTube, because we've talked a lot about how the way that traditional media does these things is just so outdated and so boring. And I think that the way that, like, you did the Mud Puddle video, Derek has done some of his kind of remote documentary style stuff. Tom Scott as well has done a lot of stuff, sort of like bringing that like traditional remote science storytelling thing into the present. I'd love to just see more of that, because you're right. Like sitting at home and in front of a set and spitting science facts. There's been a lot of that.
It's certainly easier. It's certainly easier, and I don't mean that in any derogatory way. Yes, I did. No, I definitely don't.
No, it's just objectively true. It's a lot easier.
It's easier, which is when you've got a limited budget, you have limited time. I think a lot of YouTubers feel a lot of pressure to make content as fast as they can and put up, just never stop, like churn on the treadmill. And an easier format is really enticing. And I think we actually have another easier format that we are going to keep trying as well, which was one of the other recent videos that we put up. But I want to pair it with these kinds of videos, not only going out into the world and experiencing things, but meeting people too. And I think that's something missing on a lot of these channels. A lot of them are very personality based, and it's like, look what I did, and what, like, people vlogging carrying their camera only facing their face. But I want to point that also at, I think, I want to show myself because people know me, my audience knows me, and I want to bring them along with me, but I want to then show them, like, introduce them to these other scientists, faces that they might not expect to be in science and engineering, telling their own stories and sharing their passion in a way that I am not capable of, because I haven't studied and gone through their lives and experienced the passion like they have.
Yeah. That's really important, because I have had the opportunity to sit on a couple of panels over the years with actual scientists, which I am not even remotely an actual scientist. And it's just amazing to me to listen to people like Hopi Hoekstra. I probably brutally murdered her name, and I'm sorry, but she is, I believe, a geneticist. She just studies mice. That's it, like all day. And when I say that's it, I don't mean that in like a tiny way. I mean what she does to study like mice genes, and I'm not sure if she's still doing it, this was years ago, is crazy and incredible. And she's figuring out like an unbelievable amount of things about how people, how mice work, but then, obviously trying to take those learnings and see if there's any way to correlate some of that stuff to humans, of course. But I would not have the patience at all to do the stuff that these researchers do. It's unreal. If people are not familiar with the old scientific method, it is slow. It is really slow. And you are super lucky to get findings that you are sure about in any sort of way, that hopefully could get peer reviewed later, that somebody's interested in peer reviewing, and then hopefully it kind of more people peer review it and it becomes like a thing that's established. But that whole process, I guess we, as people who are sort of the science communicators and front facing on this stuff, have done a pretty bad job really explaining how that stuff works.
Totally. And I also, I don't know that I'm even the best spokesperson for that, because one of the reasons I left science and I ended up doing science communication was this selfish reason of being like, well, if I stayed in a science lab, I might be working on the same project for 10 years. Like, what? 10 years on a thing that's like unheard of for a millennial like myself. And I get to work on a video, a new video every few weeks, every month. And that means I get to deep dive. Well, it's kind of a surface level deep dive, but it's good enough for me. I think that's the difference, is that a surface level deep dive, to get to know enough about a video to explain it to someone else and learn enough about it from these professionals to explain it to an audience, that's about the level I'm curious about. I'm not in it for the long haul, for, coming up with some of these groundbreaking and humanity changing discoveries. And that's what these people do. I think that's what's so inspiring, is that they, and also admirable, that they can stick with one field for so long. Some people love that. Some people do. It's not for everyone, but I think that's what you have to show for it at the end, is these amazing discoveries, but also, the career is just a different style. It's a different lifestyle.
And that's a general perspective on creative stuff, because we do talk about general, creative life and how to do all that stuff. This is a good perspective to realize that in the kind of creative side of things, like, let's say it's YouTube. If something is amazing, there's pressure for the next thing to be amazing. That's always there. And that's very hard for some people, because there's always a next thing weeks or months down the line that you have to produce on. At the same time, when it doesn't work out, it blows up in your face, it sucks. That's over really fast too. And you're just playing past it. And as Dianna was talking about these long research and career cycles, I know people who have put 20 plus years into a thing, and then it's been kind of turned on its head because we found out more to show that their entire line of questioning and work really doesn't quite happen. This has been a big thing in education research with learning theory. A lot of people put a lot of time into the notion that that different people have different styles of learning. And now, cognitive science tells us that's not exactly how it works. That's not the thing we thought it was 20 years ago. And you get these people who are like, 55 years old. They've been in a lab since they were an undergraduate. And, well, they were wrong for like 30 years of that. That sucks. Sucks. At least when you're on the creative side, if something goes badly, you're past it really, really fast. And you can't forget how amazing that is.
I feel like that's definitely humbling to remember, because for us, every once in a while, it's like, oh, I spent 3 weeks on this video and it didn't do well. Like, that's as bad as it gets. And I think sometimes, even with that level of discomfort, I've had to change my approach to this career and be like, okay, I have to make sure that I'm not looking at the end goal. I'm looking at also, it's the journey along the way, the friends we made along the way. Like, I really have focused more and more on the process of making videos to make sure that I enjoy it, and make sure, like, that's one of the reasons I want to go out and make these videos, because I love meeting people. I love learning about them. I love the outdoors. So I know that the process of making the video is going to be enjoyable. And by the end of it, before we even put it up, I look at my checklist and I'm like, did we learn something new? Yes, success. Did we meet somebody really cool and learn about what they do? Yes, success. Did we get to go explore somewhere we've never seen? Yes, success. Did we make a lot of jokes out in the field and make ourselves laugh? Yes, success. Like, that process is successful, and I feel really good about making a video even before it goes out. And that's the thing that I aim to do now that I didn't when I started. And I think that's one thing that's changed, recognizing that not every single video is going to get 1 million views or going to have a news article written about it, or whatever external measures of success I started out with. Now, thinking of these scientists who are working on something for decades and then it doesn't pan out after 20 years, like, I don't know. I would just imagine, if it were me, like, I would fall into a deep level of depression and be like, everything I've done is for nothing. So I think in everybody's profession, that approach of making sure that the process of doing what you're doing is enjoyable, or is at least checking off some of the boxes of what you want to achieve in life, even if they're not what external society has taught you is important or are the normal measures of success. I think that's what keeps you going. And then when your experiment fails 20 years later, you're not ready to jump into a mud puddle.
No. And I feel like a lot of this stuff boils down to like a couple really simple rules. Fill your system one with stuff and love the process of what you do. And if you do just those two things, you're going to be able to navigate like 99% of situations successfully and happily, regardless of what comes. Because even you guys, even the two of you, YouTube may not be around forever. Who knows what's going to happen 10, 12, 15 years from now? There may be a completely different dominant platform. And that reminds me of something I wanted to ask about. But yeah, I mean, I'm saying you're going to have to jump to another platform, which was the question. You've been doing some TikTok stuff, and I wanted to know what the difference is for you, from taking these really difficult, research-intensive, knowledge-intensive masterpieces from individual videos to 21 video courses, and then all of a sudden doing like 37-second clips. What's that difference like?
Well, I think it was a quick lesson that some of the videos we made originally probably should have just been a 60-second TikTok and not a 5-minute video. Because part of what we did when we approached making some TikTok videos was looking at our older videos and being like, okay, let's just take this, like making the cloud in the mouth, and boil it down to the coolest stuff. Just get really quickly to how to make the cloud in the mouth. You click your tongue a little bit to make saliva spray around your mouth. Then you pressurize your mouth and let it out slowly. It's super simple, super easy. And then what's the science behind it? Like that can happen. The first part can happen in 20 seconds. The second part can happen in 30, 40, 45 seconds, 30 or 40 seconds, and you're done. Like I think it was a good experience to go back through my old videos and critique them and be like, oh my God, so much of this was unnecessary and boring. So that was step one. And then step two was just thinking about if I had a 5-year-old child there with me, and they have the attention span of like a TikTok or probably less. And I was like, I want to show them something that's really cool and get them curious, and they want to either try it for themselves or they want to ask more questions about it. What am I going to do? I'm going to pull out like these little experiments that I have. I'm going to pull out this little hand boiler that I have, this little thing that it's like a little glass bottle with a material inside that you hold it in your hand, and it starts to boil because it boils just above body temperature. So I would show them that and be like, what do you think is going on? Do you think it's water in there or something like that? And I wanted to translate that experience of talking to a kid or someone who I just have for a moment, getting them excited about something enough, and then translate that into a TikTok. We haven't done that many TikToks, I have to be honest. Like we did 40 along with a TikTok partnership last year, and then I don't think we posted anything for a year until recently. But we're starting to go back and look through some of our old videos again, cut them down. And then every time I go running, I have an idea for like, oh, we should try this TikTok format. But then I go back to making YouTube videos. So we'll get back to it eventually.
Well, a couple of things came to mind. One is that I think it's once you've made enough YouTube videos over the years, it seems like a pretty awesome opportunity to rethink, remix, remaster them for another platform, especially one that's like quicker, more ADD, more visual. I mean, I know that you've done a lot of experiment kind of videos over the years that would play really well on TikTok, because that stuff does good on TikTok. Those like Nile Red TikToks.
Oh yeah,
like chemistry TikToks. They crush it. It's the
that
perfect
stuff is
platform
just so.
For that.
Chemistry has such an advantage. I think I feel the worst for biology. Like biology does not have it easy when it comes to visuals, unless you talk about wildlife and but you have to like, I don't know, travel to Siberia to film a tiger or something like that. I think that chemistry just really has this visual factor that the other sciences don't have nearly as much. I think space has got it going on. Astrophysics, space science, those are some awesome visuals. But as far as like showing a science process happening, chemistry is just like, it's unbelievably cool.
Yeah, because it's called blowing stuff up. That's what that's why. And real quick, we have to get to our Patreon questions. Our patrons who are here hanging out with us and are in the episode chat have some questions that they would love for you to answer for them. But before that, I really wanted to say that last week we spoke with Sven Johnson, who's an unbelievably funny comedian. And, he talked about and kind of like asked us advice on exactly sort of what you were talking about, which is the parts of the process he doesn't like and kind of what he should do about that. And listening to you talk about really honing in on making sure that whatever the journey, the process of video creation is, that thing itself is a worthwhile and meaningful endeavor for you is really important. And I can't think in 97 episodes that we've done on this show if anybody has put it in terms such as those. Do you recall that, Matt?
No, I don't think so. No.
So this is why you got to stick around for the Create Unknown. You never know what new pearls of wisdom will fall from the skies and into your ears, into your earbuds. But we do need to get to questions. So Matt, if you want to take it away with some of those.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of really good questions here. It's hard to choose what goes first. Oh, I like this one. This is from Andre APM, who again designed the Steven Seagal chibi tag that will be on all the shirts. It's amazing. He asked about the ocean and why you like it. Is it the color and all the stuff you can do in it and the diversity of the ecosystem, or how much we don't know about it? What is the ocean's appeal for you?
Oh, man. Why does anyone have a love affair with any random thing in life? I think a lot of it comes down to my childhood. And I was raised going to the beach. I was snorkeling probably when I was 4. I think by the time I loved boogie boarding and snorkeling and swimming and playing around in the ocean. I don't know what kid who learns to swim, I guess, when they're younger, doesn't love like playing in the waves and getting knocked over and like running away from them. Like you just always see little kids like running at and then running away from a wave screaming, but they love it. So that was me as a kid. And then as I got older and I learned how to scuba dive and how to surf, I think I was just so enamored with the way you can just play with the ocean. You get down there and you're scuba diving and you feel like you're just in this whole other universe, which to me, as somebody who loves exploring, like I have the same feeling when I get up in a plane, and I love getting that window seat because I just press my forehead against the glass and look down, and I love seeing a world that you don't usually see every day. So that's how I feel when I'm scuba diving and I'm like looking at these things called nudibranchs that are just like these little sea slugs that are colorful and gorgeous. And if you've never heard of a nudibranch, Google it, because they're the most beautiful animals I swear they're so gorgeous. Nudibranchs. I don't know how to spell that. And then you see sharks and you're like, I've heard of these. Oh my God, but there's one right there. And the instructor's like, you're good to go. And the shark swims right by you. It's like thrilling and a new world. And then you get up on a surfboard and you're playing, and like you feel like what an interesting sport the ocean has to offer. I've never had to describe why I love the ocean, but I hope that did it justice. I love the ocean.
As a quick addendum, I would suggest that if anybody's never done this, look up Hawaii on Google Maps and then zoom out. Growing up on Hawaii might as well be living in the ocean. It's like Atlantis. It's just nothing but water for 4,000 miles in all directions.
Long way.
That is an excellent point. That is an excellent point. I didn't have that context growing up that I was far from anything else, but I found out later that Hawaii is the farthest. It's like the piece of land that's the farthest from any other continent in the world. So we're in the middle of nowhere. Yep.
Well, we're going to switch from the ocean to general Dianna life path discussion. There are two questions that are really closely related, but I think one comes before the other one. And the first one is from German. What was your experience going through education, your college education? Did you get home and think, like, this is tough? I mean, you went to MIT too, so we're not talking an easy place. It's quite reasonable to be overwhelmed and challenged at a place like MIT. Did that happen? And did you think about, is this the right thing for me?
Oh my God. Like most freshmen at MIT, I called my mother about 2 weeks into courses and I cried. And I said, I can't do this. And I'm pretty sure that was like the freshman 2-week mantra. I can't do this. It's too hard. I failed my first math test. I failed my first physics test. I may have gotten a C on my first chemistry test because I think I got the hang of it. It was so hard. I think what I didn't get about MIT was how to do testing. And I think that, unfortunately, that's one of the things you learn the best when you get to MIT and probably a lot of schools that then does not carry on into the rest of your life. But to succeed and to survive there, you have to learn how to test well. You have to learn how to take tests. You have to learn how to cram and study and practice a bunch of different problems from previous year's tests, because before you got there, a lot of the students there, I mean, I was middle of the class. I got B's, I got A's and B's for the most part, but I was nowhere near the top of my class at MIT. I wasn't at the bottom, but I was not at the top. And I came from a school where I was at the top or just below it. Beatrice, man, she got a couple GPA points above me, but but I was close to the top of my class. And then I learned very quickly that I could do it, and I successfully made it through. And in fact, I had a lot to offer in ways that other students didn't, and then other students had a lot to offer in ways that I didn't. There was a kid who motorized a shopping cart and drove it down the main stretch, Massachusetts Avenue through campus. And, I had another friend who showed me these who had made, what are they called? They were little jars where you open them and music started playing. So there's this program thing, and then you closed it and the music stopped. So all these creative things that people made and showed off. And then I was really into science. So I took the science communication classes and did a science blog. Everybody just had their unique strengths. And I think that was what MIT was like for me. It was a process of learning, it's going to suck. It's going to be really hard, but you push through and then you find your niche, and you don't expect yourself to be as good as everybody else. And you certainly don't compare yourself to everybody else. I think that was a very valuable lesson I learned there, was to not compare myself to the other students, because they were very smart and very talented.
And like Kevin said earlier, that thing about how, the occasional loss and failure and whatever is actually pretty amazing. And it's really important that, that small school thing, we have a question about that, that'll be after this next one. But that's what happens at every small school in the US. You are probably very good at X, Y, or Z, and then you go to a bigger pond, and, you might be struggling just to keep up. It certainly was like that for me with academic subjects. I ended up going to a couple places where, you look around and everybody's pretty good at what they do. Well, guess what? You suck compared to them, and you're the dumbest person in this room. And that's completely okay. like it's an amazing position to be in. What matters is that you're there, and you're doing something very challenging. And yeah, no, I'm so glad that you detailed what that was like.
I think that was a really important thing for me to work past. Like, it's okay to not be the smartest person, but then the next step for me was to then recognize what my strengths were and then believe in those, because that took me even longer. It took me not very much time to learn it's okay to not be the smartest person, because I was shown very quickly, but then I had to learn for myself how to recognize, okay, these are where my strengths are, and value those. So you go into a room full of people who are way funnier than you, way better at math, who are way more athletic. And you're like, that's really cool. I admire it. I'm honored to be around you and see what it's like for you. And then I remember in the back of my head, like, I'm really good at physics. That's what I've got.
Well, the second half of that question is actually Maria's question, and it's about whether you got down, when you went down the creative path, did you ever second guess that? So that was well after, the studying and all of that. But did you ever think twice, or give serious consideration about continuing with YouTube stuff?
Oh, last week, last month, 2 months before that. I have doubted, this job is hard. I don't know exactly. I haven't been able to figure out yet exactly what it is about this job as a YouTuber in science, what it is about this job that I always have these cycles of being like, I suck at this job. I'm really I'm not good at it. Why am I doing it? I'm so bad at it. And then like a couple days later being like, no, I'm okay. Like, I've succeeded. I've made this a full-time career. I've made some cool stuff. Like, I have doubted so many times. Maybe it's the fact that it's creative. You guys keep pointing out the creativity of a job like this. And maybe it's like, it's so subjective whether something you've made is good. And I could make something that's about the topic that I'm the most fascinated by, and maybe a few people are like, oh my God, I love holograms. This was the best video I've ever seen. And then the majority of the internet is like, I could care less about that particular topic. I think that, yeah, that happens to me all the time, where I doubt myself. I doubt whether I should continue in this. And I'm always thinking, I'll just fall back on software engineering, go back and be a software engineer again.
Oh, that's true.
But
you certainly can.
But at the same time, then I recognize, no, I enjoy this. And I think that that's the most important thing for me. I enjoy it. There are some people who are getting something out of what I do. The messages haven't stopped from young girls who are like, I decided to take a science class because I watched some of your videos. So those messages haven't stopped. I haven't stopped enjoying myself in the process. So it's not time to quit yet.
Let's see. Now I'm struggling on whether we should ask that question next. Let's do a quickie here. This is from Dan. Since you're talking about constantly reevaluating the YouTube side of things, what do you think the future of science communication is in the next 5 or 10 years? What's next?
I mean, I am so blown away with everything that's happening on TikTok. Like, all of the science raps and people who are just like sharing really rapid facts. I think that stuff is super cool. I think also like the scientists who are addressing misinformation about COVID or vaccination hesitancy. Like, there's so much more happening now than there ever was in areas that are a little bit more difficult to talk about. Like, I see more talk about climate change and renewable energy. So I see a lot more important issues being discussed from scientists, and I see a lot more scientists who are communicating too. So this is probably not exactly what you meant. I'm guessing you were wondering, like, what platforms everybody going to be on and what kind of videos are they going to make? But I see more the change is going to be in who is making the content. And we're seeing a lot more scientists who are starting to share their interests, share from their lab, share their personalities. And I think that's the most exciting thing. The fact that we're just seeing more voices in science the even faster platforms like TikTok are making it easier. So yeah, I think that stuff is cool. I'm excited about that. And I see that as partially the direction science communication is going.
Okay, that's cool. We're going to swing back to the school experience because this is from Ben, who says that he went to a high school of almost identical size, and God willing, they'll let him graduate in coming days, and he'll be the pain will end. Ben, it's on the horizon. But his question is really good here. It's about learning in a small environment. Was that an advantage? Was it a disadvantage? Would it have been better to go to Bronx Science and have like 90 trillion students around you?
No, I think that in this particular school, it was a huge advantage. I was really lucky because I will venture and say that I was really good at math. Like that was my strength when I was a kid. I was really advanced in math. So my school allowed me to skip to algebra when I was in 6th grade. So then by the time I was a freshman, I was taking calculus. And then I finished the math curriculum at our high school. There was nothing left. So at that point,
You beat math.
I beat math.
You ran out of road.
I finished all of it. But at that point, that meant I was a lot more free to take other things. And my math teacher was willing to take me on and teach statistics. So it was me and this other foreign exchange student from Spain taking a statistics class together, just the two of us. And they had never taught that before. And the other larger public high school didn't offer statistics. So there was that advantage. The other things that came up were like opportunities to have the dive club or to go for like a recess where we could go off campus and do some cool little, visits to like the Arboretum or something and learn how to plant a tree. So we had, I think, some unusual, unique experiences, and I was able to my curriculum was a little bit, I created a course for myself when I needed to fill a, what was it called? Like a elective credit. And my school allowed me to do this DVD series, man. They were all over the place in the early 2000s. But I did this DVD series about training horses and worked with some horses at this local ranch nearby. And they were like, as long as someone's there to sign off on your credits, you can watch this DVD series, go work with the horses, and that can be your elective credit. So there was the advantage of that, where I got to pursue some other weirder interests, like training horses.
Again, sorry to go back to this, complaining about my high school experience while you're training horses. Anyway, next question.
You could have trained horses if you wanted to, Kevin. Like I literally can name the places, like 2 of them within like 5 miles of your house.
Yes, but not
didn't
in
want
lieu,
it bad enough. That's the problem.
Not in lieu of Latin 4.
Well, no, you wouldn't have gotten credit for it. No. On the academic side, this is from Jeff. Are you going to do any more 101 type review curriculum stuff? Do you have anything in the pipeline that's similar to the AP Physics one?
I don't think so. That was challenging. It was really hard. I think we don't give teachers enough credit for how well they know the material when they go in and teach a course. Because I hadn't taken intro physics since I was 15. So going back and teaching that was really difficult. And I worked actually with my high school physics teacher. So he was the lead curriculum designer on that. Nice. So we wrote the lessons together, which was really cool. Another wholesome little nugget. It all comes back around. So it was really challenging. I also I felt like that wasn't my strength. And this goes back to, recognizing where your strengths are. I think my strengths really are in when I learn something and discover something for myself, get excited about it. And it's hard for me to do that with material that I learned a long time ago. So it was really interesting. It was also really good timing for COVID happening and some more online learning happening. But I prefer the other stuff that I've been working on. The Mud Puddles, the observatories where they discovered the universe, things like that.
Yeah. No, that's a different
I hope that's
type
not a
of
disappointment to anyone there.
Let's see. We got a couple more here. What book are you reading now? This is from Linus. And by the way, Linus is supporting us on Patreon in an incredibly generous way. Thank you, Linus, for stepping up. We use, except for what Kevin spends on Beanie Babies, every bit of the Patreon money goes into making the show. But yeah, Linus's question is great. What book are you reading now, or did you last read, if you're between books?
I am reading, people are always disappointed that I'm not reading like some deep science, like quantum mechanics book, but I'm reading a book that helps me sleep at night because I wake up in the middle of the night. And lately I've been waking up to seagulls shouting down the chimney and echoing into the room. This is total side note, but we had 2 baby seagulls fall down our chimney over the last few days. And we had to have the Humane Society come rescue baby seagulls. They're super cute. Turns out they have a bunch of spots, adorable, fluffy, but they make so much noise. So I like to listen to books. I listen to a lot of audiobooks that allow you to sleep okay. So not books you really have to pay attention to. So the ones I've been listening to lately have been the Agatha Christie series, the murder mystery novels written in like the 1920s, but They're great. They're so, I'm working my way through.
We talked to Food for Dogs about Agatha Christie. When Food for Dogs mentioned liking Agatha Christie, I made a big deal about how this was the only time ever in the history of this podcast we would talk about Agatha Christie. So I talked about, having just watched the ABC Murders.
Oh, fun.
But here it is again. It's been like 6 episodes and it's back. So this is, Kevin, this is news to you, but this is an Agatha Christie podcast now. If you want to unsubscribe, now's the time. Because it's Agatha Christie all the time now.
I'm cool with that. I like Agatha Christie. That's okay. I'm not hating on that. Also, can I say really quickly, I had this thought in my broken smooth brain. Are Funko Pops then like Beanie Babies? Are they like modern Beanie Babies? Is that a fair thing to say? Are Funko Pops like cultural Beanie Babies? There's no answer. I'm just throwing that
Dianna,
out there.
This is a question for you.
Just
this
chucking
is
it
Kevin's
into the
question for
ether.
You got to figure this out.
I don't know what Funko Pops are. I have to start with like the knowledge of the question first. I don't know what those are.
Like they're like 6-inch kind of simplified dolls. U2s are very much like Funko Pops in theory. But yeah, they make them for like all popular characters, from the Golden Girls to the Avengers. But yeah,
are they like the
easily
Bratz
stackable,
dolls
so you see them in the
something?
background of a lot of videos.
Yeah, they're like little figurines that are always about some sort of pop culture character.
Funko Pops. They're so cute. Yeah. Yes. These are the Beanie Babies. Did you guys collect Beanie Babies? I had like 50 of them or something like that.
I still do. I'm always on the lookout for a very particular koala Beanie Baby that came in a McDonald's Happy Meal. And each time I get one, I give it a name. Yeah, I give it a name and a job. And the names all have to begin with J as well. So there's Jeeves, Jarvis, Jehovah, and Jenkins right now.
That's amazing.
And then I have one spare that's still in the bag that can be a replacement for any of the 4 original J names, J koalas. But yeah, occasionally they're at garage sales. But yes, Beanie Babies are awesome.
That's amazing.
Okay, I will say this can become an Agatha Christie podcast, but this cannot become a Beanie Baby podcast. I just want to make that clear.
There are no Agatha Christie Beanie Babies that I know of.
We can switch back to science if we have to. Oh, there should be. I bet there's an Agatha Christie Funko Pop. I would not be surprised if there was. That would be rad. I'm Googling this furiously before asking the next question. No kidding. There's Poirot and Miss Marple Funko Pops.
Yes.
I'm on board with this.
I haven't read any of the Miss Marple ones yet.
Okay, so back to science. Oh, sorry. Oh, the TV show is good. Both the Poirot and Miss Marple TV series are amazing. Yes. Okay, so back to science. This is Jeff's question, which I think is the last one we've got here. If you could safely visit any planet, which one would you want to visit to study firsthand?
I mean, Jupiter. Like, that place is just, I think you probably have to like stop over on one of the moons because Jupiter doesn't actually have a solid surface. But I mean, the views from Jupiter must be insane because you've got all of the moons, you've got all of the stripes. It's just such an incredibly beautiful and colorful planet. And I am a sucker for pretty colors. And that is my answer. I'm sticking to it.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, I tried to get him to rephrase it to like, what would be worth seeing for like a millionth of a second before you died instantly? Is there a planet that that you'd be happy with a millionth of a second of experience with?
Yeah, like you would freeze. You'd be hit with the radiation. You would, you wouldn't have enough power probably because there's not enough solar or other materials there. We don't know what we're going to be able to mine. I don't know. There's a whole litany of issues, but it would be really beautiful on your way out.
Well, we have one more very general question from Marco before we let you go, and that is, what made you happy this week?
Oh, what made me happy this week? Ooh, I started surfing again. Thanks for asking, Marco. I've taken about a year off of surfing because of a back injury. So I'm not one of those people that shares everything that goes on in my life, but I've had a really bad back injury for about 2 years, and it's been I've been rehabbing it to the point where I could surf again. And I just started again this week, and it was very wonderful. It was splendid to be out there, played in the waves. My arms are like noodles slapping the water. It was so painful, but I'm very happy to be back out.
That's a major milestone. Congrats.
I was going to say, what a good week to ask that question.
Good week.
That was 2 years in the making. Yeah. Well, my arms are also like noodles slapping in the water. And on that note, I'd just like to thank you for coming on. This was great. Everybody go check out PhysicsGirl on YouTube. Watch that moving mud puddle video. If you do nothing else in the next 24 hours, make sure that you watch that video because it's great and you should. And check out her Patreon. She's free from PBS currently, totally independent, doing this on her own, venturing out, doing these crazy remote videos that take a lot of work and have lots of fancy shots and involve interviewing people, and a lot is going into it, but she's enjoying the process along the way. And other than that, you going to VidCon this year?
I was not invited as a featured creator this year, which surprisingly feels totally okay. But I mean, I live so close. Might just crash it anyways.
Right.
Sure.
All right. Well, Matt and I will be there, and I don't know, maybe we'll figure out some sort of TCU VidCon thing. I know that we've talked about it a little bit. Yeah. We got to figure something out there, but
we got to. Anyway, the sands are running through the hourglass.
The Mud Puddle is closing in. That's all you need to know. And
put on those slow running shoes. You'll make it. You'll make it. Go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown to become part of this podcast. And until next time, we will see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We'd like to extend a huge thank you and congratulations to the Tots and Dumpster crew who save tiny little lives every single month. A tremendous shout out to our elite baby gang commanders. Linus, our newest. Trevsdead, Boromir, Botdogs, Chinchilla, Isaac, Conrad, James, Andrew, Jeff Davis, Patrick Pister, Baseweight, Monahim, Dojangles, and Zero. And thanks to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Jen Maffasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Risebread, Sean Malone, Triple Question Mark, Ryan, Kamikaze, Maria Marco, Sheep, Tom Videogre, Jelksies, and Dan the Latch. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer Dan Yosua and producer-editor Ben Webster. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme, and to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.